This video is sponsored by MPB.
So I recently received an email from a guy who was asking for advice about landscape photography gear on a budget. A camera for somebody who's exhausted their old mobile phone. Somebody who loves being outdoors, who's excited to wake up at 4 in the morning, and somebody who sees everything as a potential masterpiece. Anyway, I had a bit of a think, and all I could come up with was coming in at around about £2,000, and that really got me thinking. So over the past few years, it definitely feels as if we've normalised spending thousands of pounds on photography gear. Let me go back to when I first began getting into landscape photography. I had no money. In fact, I had negative money to my name. I was in debt, but it was my birthday, and my parents bought me a Canon 350D, and it came with a kit lens, 18-55 kit lens, and I remember that bundle was coming in at about £659, and that was my first camera, my first DSLR, and I loved it, and it opened up this world that I still live in now. That world, you know the type where you're driving down the road and you notice lights falling on rooftops, and you get that sickening feeling in your stomach when you see distant, beautiful light and photography conditions, but you can't stop and photograph it, that kind of thing. Now back then, it would have been inconceivable for me to spend like £3,000 on camera gear. Like, it was absolutely out of the realms of possibility. There was no way I could have done it, but I still wanted to be up early, up at sunrise, just like I am now, out in the wind and the rain and getting salty sea spray all over me, because that's what photography is about, and it doesn't have to cost thousands and thousands of pounds. It's unfair that we're normalising all of this, and I do it. I've got the camera gear that I own runs into 5 figures. It's ridiculous. I'm guilty of this, but anyway, today's video, we're doing something completely the opposite of that. So I set myself a budget of £500, which I think is reasonable to get into a hobby that could potentially change your life. And for that £500, I wanted a setup, a landscape photography setup that would do me in a lot of situations, or at least would allow me to get my foot in the door and experience things like this. Now, I'm just going to say this straight off the bat. I have failed to hit that £500 budget when you count accessories such as tripod, filters, L bracket that's on this camera, the bag, subscriptions to software such as Photoshop and Lightroom. However, the camera and the lens I'm using here today have come in at just less than £500. And I can't believe it. That is an absolute steal for the quality that we're getting. Well, this is just incredible. 500 quid and you get to experience this, and although, whoa, flipping it, we've got waves crashing over. The problem I'm going to have with the images is not the camera. It's not the 2008 21 megapixel Canon 5D Mark II. It's the wind, it's the sea, it's the salt spray, it's the elements, it's the frantically rushing and looking for the composition. Those are the challenges we face as photographers, not the camera gear. The camera should never get away in the way of photography. If you're on a budget, which I appreciate a lot of people probably are, man, don't knock something like this. It's incredibly challenging this morning. We've got wind, which is, for most of the images this morning, I'm blowing straight into the lens, which, by the way, is a Tamron 17-35. The lens is so important when it comes to your photography, more important than the body. And I really struggled to get a lens that was within budget, which is why I went third party and not a Canon lens. But yeah, the 17-35 got great reviews online, came in on budget. It's a great focal length, 17, so you can get shots like this where I'm making use of this beautiful limestone pavement. And now, even though the light's gone, we've still got incredibly deep moody skies. I've got filters on to give me that longer exposure, which, to be honest, might be to my detriment because of the wind, which is vibrating the tripod, so it's not great. But you know, we'll keep trying. We'll keep taking lots of exposures. Yeah, I'm having a great time. What can I say? I mean, it's very difficult to film because it's so windy, but man, what a time! Just a bit of seaweed. Move that. So I was not expecting this morning's photo shoot to be so frantic. It's the wind and it's the sea spray that just makes everything so difficult. And I'm just looking at some blooming sun rays coming out of that beautiful sky, and I'm gonna have to shoot again, excuse me. Oh man, this is perfect actually, because I really didn't want this to become a gear video per se. It's more of a photography video. Oh, tell you what, this tide's coming in fast and this light is beautiful. It's a photography video. It's to show that, well, I'm blooming repeating myself, aren't I? But 500 quid. This is glorious. This is for good photography. You don't need good gear necessarily. What you need are good conditions, good light, a good composition, a good idea, a passion to be getting up at 3:30 in the morning and driving to Northumberland coast, just like we've done here. You will have a fantastic time, and whether you have a 5D Mark II, a 5D Mark I, a Nikon D70S, or a Nikon Z8 or a Sony A7V-A1, it doesn't matter. Don't ever be put off because you can't afford the latest camera. There you go. So I was putting together the images for my calendar, and I realized that this hasn't been a great year for me. I struggled to get 12 images that I was really happy with that would work in the calendar, in the context of the calendar. What I struggled with the most, or what I was lacking, was that colorful, bright sunrise shots, kind of like what we're getting now. So I had the idea when I arrived this morning that this camera is more than capable. So there's no reason, if we get the right conditions, that we can't fill that midsummer spot in the calendar. That's kind of, yeah. So I'm kind of hoping this might be it. Certainly something from this morning. Well, that was a fantastic morning, and I have to say, this brings back a lot of memories for me, where I've had the Canon, obviously the 350D, that tiny 8-megapixel beauty from 2006. I had the Canon 7D, I had the Canon 5D Mark III, the Canon 5D Mark IV, and this is nice. It's really nice. It's a great camera. And do you know what? I mean, maybe it's just my style of shooting, or landscape shooters as a breed, we don't really utilize much of the technology that's out there. You know, we tend to like manual focus, we like to slow down with our work. This does not feel like an old camera. I was using live view the whole time, which flips the mirror up and essentially gives you a mirrorless camera. The colors are going to be fantastic. I'm not sure about sharpness because I have no experience with this lens and it's windy as anything. I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to go back to the office and I would like to print one, and then I will have a good understanding if the 5D Mark II is still, yeah, so we're going to do that because I'm flipping freezing, I've got wet feet, so we'll go to the office and we'll do that. But before we go there, let me thank the sponsor of this video, which is MPB. MPB is a platform where you can buy, sell and trade your gear. So you can sell them your camera gear, you can buy used gear from them, or you can just do a straight up trade. Now, I've used them in the past. I sold my 5D Mark IV to them and got a fantastic price. It was easy, fat-free, entered all the details about my camera gear. They gave me a price, I accepted it, they sent me a shipping label, job done. Although I have to say, I kind of regret that now after using the 5D Mark II, because this is just a trip down memory lane and a fantastic camera. But if you are thinking about getting into landscape photography, buying some used gear, then check out MPB, because there is so much stock on there. You will spend hours browsing, and all the cameras, they're going to be absolutely fine. You're not going to have any problems with them whatsoever. And of course, if you want to sell your gear and upgrade, you can sell it to MPB. So if you want to give that a go or have a look, go to mpb.com/Heaton. Well, I think that was a brilliant morning, and I'm very happy with how the print turned out. Now, I don't want this to turn into a gear review video, and in fact, believe it or not, this video is as far removed from a gear video as you can imagine, despite what the context of the video, the title and the thumbnail both suggest. But trust me, stick with me. The idea was to show that it doesn't matter what you have in your hands, you can still go out, have a great time, and really enjoy being out in the landscape. For £500, I think I did quite a good job, but I'm curious what you would have chosen. So let me know in the comments, because there was so much to choose from, although I did struggle to meet that £500 budget, mainly because of the lens. You have to have good glass. Now, the one downside of this setup that many people will probably suggest is the lack of megapixels, but there's only 3 real situations where you need to consider megapixels. One is if you're printing large, sort of 5-6 feet wide, big, large format prints. The second is if you're heavily cropping, maybe you're going for a panoramic crop, or you don't have a lens that's long enough, so you need to then crop in to get the frame that you want. In those situations, you are going to suffer if your megapixels aren't up there. And finally, it's for your own gratification to go in, zoom into 100%, and just look at all of those beautiful details that your 50 megapixel camera or 100 megapixel camera has captured. Trust me, that is satisfying, and it's an amazing thing to do. But that's really for you and you alone. When you step back and look at a photograph at the correct viewing distance, megapixels do not matter. So I hope this shoot and this nice print here does encourage you, especially if you're a beginner, to just go out and just don't worry too much about the gear, which is very difficult to do in this day and age of social media and people like me on the internet with the latest Nikon Z8 or some ridiculously expensive panoramic film camera. Truly, it's not about that. It's a nice thing to have, and I'm not going to sit here and say that, you know, 15-year-old cameras are just as good as the cameras today. They're really not. You can notice a difference, especially in dynamic range and the features that are in them. But trust me, the gap isn't as big as you would think. Hope you've enjoyed it. That's the whole thing, just a bit of fun. And I will see you all next week. So thank you for watching, and bye for now.
I hope you enjoyed this week's video. On my website, I have 2 books available for purchase, and I'll leave links in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all hopefully next week.